Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. All right, so first up, we have D&D news that is happening right now, today-ish, adjacent, in the last 24 hours. D&D Beyond is having a 9-day holiday giveaway goodies thing. I don't know exactly what that is because I found out about it when I was looking for news right before I started filming this. So I will be going to do a little bit more research on that. But they have links to it sort of all over the place. It looks like they're just giving out little things for the next, supposedly, 9 days, which is pretty cool. Free stuff is always great. Everybody likes free stuff. That is everything I have for news presently. So we're going to move on from that. But in terms of streams for this whole weekend, we've got today, Friday, on twitch.tv/D&D Acquisitions Incorporated at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. On twitch.tv/Chromatic Dice, we have Chromatic Dice at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And at twitch.tv/CTN_pod or wherever you get your podcasts, we have Coming Together Naturally. I don't know the exact time for that, but they tend to release their episodes right about now. Not right about now, like now, but like on Friday. Then on Saturday, on twitch.tv/D&D for both of these, we have Let's Get Wild Nut at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time and Trace Albus at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then finally on Sunday at twitch.tv/D&D, we have D4 at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and the Critical Fail and the podcast, or Trevor Fail DM, etc. They are running a Curse of Strahd campaign. They tend to release their episodes on Sundays, and they are a really good dynamic group. I definitely recommend checking out them if you have not already. That is all the stuff I have for news and streams. Moving along from that to T&D today. Today I have my favorite, just my straight up green tea. I'm going to help finish installing a stage today, so that's exciting. So I gotta get myself moving a little bit. This is about all the caffeine that I have in a day, so this is what I got for myself there. And based on what we're talking about today, it actually felt kind of appropriate that I have my mug stat block mug. It has a stat block for a mug. I got it at C2E2 back in 2020, right before the world shut down for an extended period of time, and is still kind of shut down. Not really the point. And it is the most bookish kind of D&D bookish mug that I have, and so it felt appropriate to talk about what we were going to be talking about, which we will roll into right now. How's that for a segue for you? Today, we are taking a deeper dive into Strixhaven, a Curriculum of Chaos. I am excited about this one. Obviously, on Wednesday, I talked about the first portion of the book. I think I called it half then. It's really more like the first third of the book, relatively deeply. I had actually read most of that at that point. And so this is going to focus more on the back 2/3 of the book. But if you want to if you want to find that video and see what I said about the first third of the book, I'm going to have a link to it. I'm going to try and get it somewhere up here, but it also might be down here somewhere. I don't know. I don't really do that as part of this, so bear with me. Let's see if I figure it out or not. So there's a link to it somewhere on the screen right about now, and I appreciate you going and checking that out. Oh, that is hot. That was a bigger sip than I was expecting to. So anyway, talking about Strixhaven. Strixhaven, as mentioned before, as many people have mentioned, and many people who know things know, Strixhaven is based in Magic the Gathering. That's what that little symbol means right there. And it is a crossover event. It is an adventure/adventures for characters levels 1 through 10, which is interesting to me. And so we're going to take a look at the part of the book that is more module-focused, module-forward, and we are going to sort of figure out what exactly that all entails as we go through this. I am going to kick it off because I don't have like a lot of specific notes that I want to talk about in this book, other than I'm so happy that I have my actual physical copy this time. It always gets to me on like the Thursday, so it's always just like just too late for me to like be able to show it in my initial look through. But I want to do my initial look through, obviously, um, and so I am happy to actually have a physical copy in my hands. This one I got delivered instead of going to pick it up in my local game store. So I had to wait a little bit longer than I normally do. But let's talk about the way this is set up. It is broken out into one, two, three, four distinct different adventure chunks, essentially. And the first one actually covers part of what I talked about before, which was the relationship rules. That are sort of laid out and how they impact your relationships with other NPCs and other player characters at Strixhaven for this actual adventure and the whole, rolling sort of idea behind that sort of thing. I think that sentence made sense, but I know that I used pretty vague words there. I think you're with me, though. I'm going to hope that you are. So it is split up into 4 different years because there are 4 different years at Strixhaven. As they go, Chapter 3 is your first year, Chapter 4 is your second year, 5 is your third year, and 6 is your fourth year, as, math can tell you how to do with all of that. We're going to pretend like that sentence made sense. So the way that this is sort of broken out is every adventure has every year has different exam periods inside of them, built inside of them as almost like inciting events for each of these things, which is interesting to me. It is an odd way to set it up in my mind, but it is how they have decided to set it up, which is, great. More power to them. It is just something that I wasn't super expecting when I started to go through it. And I believe, let me make sure here before I say something that is just dumb. Each year, except for your fourth year, has 3 different exams inside of it, which means that each year, except for your fourth year, has 3 separate, distinct sort of like pods of action, I'm going to call it, because the thing to keep in mind with all of this, the way that I see it at least, is that overall, it is a well-written story to cover your journey across all of the different years of school. I think that it does a really good job of that. However, as individual mini adventures, they do not have a whole lot of fleshed outness within them. I could see playing them as one-shots and being really effective. In just reading it, not running it, I'm sure that if I ran it, I'd have a slightly different opinion. But in just reading it, it seems a lot like this book is set up less as a cohesive adventure to get you through the year, or at least not in such a way that it wants you to actually play out the entire year, which is fair. There's plenty of periods of time where like nothing is really happening, so you just sort of fast forward through stuff when you're at a college, right? So I figured that checks out. That makes sense. That adds up. But the way that this is set up is it sets up almost 3 distinct pockets of actual action within each year for you in the way that this is set up. And so it feels a little bit more broken up to me, especially because everything is incited by an exam. So it feels like you do an exam, have a quick little thing, and then you just sort of like peter out and run through the rest of the year right up until your next exam where you have another thing, and then it peters out, and then that is what the pacing felt like to me when I read through it. But that's also just me. Maybe you have a different opinion on that one. The other thing I will say, because I'm not going to go through each of these individual mini adventures one by one, because that would be honestly obnoxious and boring, because that would be 1, 2, 3, plus the big one at the end. That would be 10 total adventures, essentially, that you would be having to deal with. Because the fourth year is the one where you don't have it broken up into 3 distinct sort of like episodic parts of the year. That is kind of one big thing that happens for the students, the players last year at Strixhaven. And so you'd have to sit there and listen to me go, well, in the first year, in your first adventure, you'd go through, and that's just not going to be interesting to people. The thing I will say about the way that this is laid out is that while it is episodic like that, those episodes are pretty universally interesting. While they are short and little pieces in here, good example. We're gonna go to year 2 just because at that point you are not level 1 anymore. The gap between your first exam being on page 106 and your second exam being on page 113, that's really short. That's 7 pages. That whole first adventure bit takes place in those 7 pages, and then it's only 5 pages between your second and third exam, and then it's another 6 pages to the end of that chapter. They happen quick. They are definitely like these smaller episodic sort of things. However, each of those episodes really, really, really well contributes to the overall flavor of the university and really sort of drives home this idea that you are playing at a university, which is the point, I understand. But like, it really, really drives it home to a degree that I wasn't really expecting. They have rules in here for, sports. They have theater in here. They've got theater / concerts. They've got a masquerade ball. So essentially a dance function at a college, which is interesting. In addition to the fact that you are actively studying for exams and working a job and, that sort of thing throughout this whole process. Because of the way that I read this book and the way that I laid out these videos, my brain for a while separated out the first bit that I talked about and the second bit, and I was like, man, the second bit is really not full of stuff. But it's because they use the first part of the book to really sort of lay out all the stuff that happens between the adventures. So if you are a group that is much more roleplay heavy, I think that this is a really phenomenal book for you because it leaves a lot of open space for all of that roleplay between each of the episodes. And then at the episodes, they add a lot of individual specific flavor to the actual university itself, which is, I think, what they were going for, I hope, because that is what I got out of it, at least. But these sort of things where they add these little rules in to make your life as a dungeon master just a little bit easier so that you can keep this sort of varied gameplay in this otherwise very repetitive sequence of events is really, really nice. And then they do cap it off with a good 22 page chapter 6, where it is your 4th year and you are actually on like a larger adventure. You are end of Harry Potter where you're saving Hogwarts, or I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I read Harry Potter a while ago. I haven't read it since then. Don't murder me, internet. But this book is laid out in such a way that really allows you to fill in the blank spaces on your own, I guess is what I am trying to say ultimately at the end of that long rambling nonsense that I just spewed at you. And it really, really stays true to playing this through the lens of a college student, a college experience. They have all of these different things that really sort of feed into it, like concerts that you are required to go to, or dances that you get excited about and prepare for and get going to, ghost stories that like people tell back and forth, and then you happen to be in the group that goes to investigate them, that sort of thing. And so I am a big fan of that in particular, because it feels like it rings true, at least to my college experience, in addition to it feeling like it fills in, again, this weird niche. I said it in my last video, this weird niche that you didn't really know wasn't filled in a D&D sort of setting because you don't think about it. But if you are looking to run a Fantasy High type game or a Shriek Week type game or something like that, this is actually an invaluable resource for you, honestly, because there are so many little things in here that you can use to augment that experience in such a way that you didn't really expect to. And I think that is really where this book shines, in addition to the baked-in lore that comes with all of the Magic the Gathering stuff that they've brought over, because obviously that is a long and rich sort of tapestry that they have already spent many a years weaving for themselves. So I am just really glad that this book fills that sort of gap, especially because, as I mentioned in my last video, my initial pass over it, my quick glance, I was disappointed with the fact that it was half module, half source book. Like, it felt like they weren't really feeding the thing that needed to happen within it in such a way that would make either of those really worth it. But after seeing how they all come together and really reading it as a cohesive unit, I can say, for me at least, it does hold up pretty well as like this sort of overarching theme with almost an example through the module bit of it, of how you can have a 4-year college experience in your D&D universe that is interesting and varied and fun. They leave a ton of room, because of the way that the episodic nature of these chapters are laid out, for you to improv, add your own things, add in stuff that you think is important to have within those sort of, I don't want to say conversation. Those years that you go through within your fantasy college experience, if you didn't get enough college in normal college. Yeah, I think that's right. And then quickly, just to touch on the very end of the book, there is a 40-page bestiary in here, which is fantastic. If you know anything about me, if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I love me some good monsters. I love a good monster. And there are a lot of really cool monsters in here. And more than that, there are a lot of really like useful scaled level spellcaster stat blocks in here, which is awesome. Like, I think that we don't have enough variety in our spellcasters in current canon D&D stuff, and so the fact that they have a first-year student that is a CR 1/2 creature, essentially, that you would have to fight against, up to, the Dragon Founders, who are CR 20+, that sort of thing, giving you 40 different pages of that, really, really sort of makes it a rounded sort of book to me. It is... I struggle with trying to decide where to categorize it, because it is, while it has a robust monster section, it is not by any means a bestiary. While it has a robust, like, source material, character-driven sort of setting section, it is not really a source book. There isn't enough material there for it to be a source book. And while there is a large portion of it that is, in fact, module, that's only about half of the actual text in the book, which is not enough to make it a real module. And so I don't really know what to call it, but whatever it is really cool. It's almost like a setting with a sample adventure inside of it, which isn't really, that's kind of a cop-out. That's just combining two things. Not the point. But I like it. I like it a lot more than I thought I was going to. Is it Fizzbands for me? No, it's not Fizzbands for me. Maybe it would be if I knew more about Magic the Gathering. But is it worth it? I think it is. If you have, especially if you have a homebrew world and you want a magic school in it, but for whatever reason you are struggling to like flesh out your magic school, and you want there to be some kind of guideline in there for you that isn't just Harry Potter. This is actually really, really phenomenal, and I highly recommend taking a look at it. In addition to that, the art across the board in this is gorgeous. I'm in the monster section right now. I'm looking at this. The fact that all of this is centered around magic means that the spells and the spell effects that are in this book everywhere are beyond amazing. And just so many little things. Like, here you go. Here is the concert that I was talking about, them actually writing in. And there's magic coming off of the instruments. It's so cool. It's a good, like, almost way to imagine a bard's performance going, which I think is phenomenal. I'm trying now to find, while I vamp here for a little bit, one of the just beyond beautiful spreads for the different colleges. Here you go. Here is Quandrick's college. That is an individual campus on the actual university's campus thing, whatever you want to call it. So the art in this is amazing as well. Obviously, they always do a good job with the art. But like, I think there's so much good in this book. I would add this to the guide that I put out yesterday, the holiday gift guide. I think that if you have a D&D player in your life, especially if they like Magic the Gathering, this is a solid choice. This really, really is a solid choice. Especially because it's just come out and maybe they don't have it yet. Maybe they haven't had the chance to go get it yet. Maybe their life is crazy with exams or something like that. So you want to get them this, and then you just have to make sure that they don't buy it for themselves before Christmas rolls around or whatever holiday you would be giving it to them for. But that is my more in-depth look at Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos, just sort of all around, but mostly focusing on the back 2/3 of it. So I hope that helps someone out there at least a little bit. But with that, that is everything that I have to talk to you guys about today. Thank you so much for tuning in and making me part of your morning routine. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're willing and able, there is a link to my Patreon in the description of this video. And I greatly, greatly appreciate every little bit of support that comes my way. But with that, I hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. I will see you on Monday. And until then, keep on rolling.